Firstly, you want to look at the key characteristics of a husky and what stands out the most. They have large triangle ears, their facial markings are very unique, and their eyes are an almond shaped, if you want to do a more realistic approach. And their overall shape of their head is like a diamond. After picking out some key features, you want to start breaking down Fluke into shapes by tracing over the reference image. No, this isn't cheating. By practicing this method, eventually you'll be able to break down your subject into shapes naturally, which will help when drawing things from life or creating character illustrations, and it will also help with proportions to begin with. You can see now that there are some recurring shapes in Fluke's face from this front view. The triangle-shaped ears, the top of his muzzle is a half hexagon shape, then his eye markings are rounded triangles. His nose is quite oval, with a centre line going from the middle of the nose through to the bottom to mark the front of his mouth. Think of it as an upside down T shape. You can start to see the overall shape of Fluke's head being this diamond shaped, sometimes being more rounded at the bottom. Again, taking the same method and principles from the front view to the side view of Fluke. You can see that the muscles on his chest and rear legs are very large and the shapes are quite angular. Like before, you'll start to notice recurring shapes to use for Fluke's body. We have a mixture of rectangle type shapes and hexagon shapes, mainly with a circle for his head. A useful tip for drawing the head, especially if at an angle, is to think of it as a 3D object. So by marking in the eye line and the centre line of the head to make a cross, the drawing has a little more form and it doesn't look as flat. Drawing on top of photo references, you'll start to get a feel of the shapes, and the easier it will become to draw these shapes together to form your drawing. Using this method can also help if the dog is in a more difficult position to draw. With practice, you'll begin to understand the shapes used that form the structure of the body, and you can eventually manipulate those shapes to form a position, expression, or a movement of the dog. Here I'm now applying this method to draw the image of Fluke without tracing, using the common shapes we picked out before, so the diamond-shaped head, the half hexagon for the top of his muzzle, big triangle ears, and his face markings. You can see I still use the image as a guide or reference to break down into shapes, so it's easier to understand how to build the structure of his body position. You can use reference points or markings when drawing. So for example, you can see I've marked out Fluke's paw positions. His paw positions is in fact a shape in itself, a triangle with his back feet being 2 points and his front feet being the third. You can use that as a guide to figure out the correct positioning or distance of his paws. So this technique takes practice. That's why tracing the image to start is useful. This is to show you how you can break the image down into shapes to then start building the structure of the body. Drawing is essentially a lot of shapes put together to form something. Hopefully, by looking at it this way, a drawing will be less intimidating to start. Once you feel you've got a good basic overall shape of your dog, you can now think about adding in more detail. This is the time to neaten up the drawing. Whereas before you wanted to get your shapes in the right position and proportion size looking right, you can now give your drawing a little more character. This is where you can tidy up the shapes by adding fur texture in, shaping the eyes and the nose, etc. Here is an example of colouring in an illustration using an iPad and an Apple Pencil in the program Procreate. This stage is all about experimenting and having fun, of course. So use different mediums such as colouring in pencils, paints, or even try collage. You can photocopy or retrace your original drawing so you can recolour it as many times as you want. Like everything, it takes practice to build skills, so don't give up if it's not working straight away. Try different methods and just find what works for you. Thank you for watching this short tutorial, and I hope you find something useful from it. If you like this video, then please help the National Animal Welfare Trust by making a donation through their website. You can find more of my work on my Instagram account and my website. Any questions, feel free to give me a message or comment below.